Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. We are here today with Chris Canfield, who is the director of technology for TraitWare. Hey, Chris, how are you today?
Really good, Scott. How you doing?
I'm
Good to
awesome.
see
I'm
you.
awesome. So I know this is
Yeah,
kind of getting thrown together at the last minute here, but I got a couple
we'll make
questions
it
for
work.
you. We'll make it work. We'll make it work. So,
Always, always.
Chris, tell me where you're located at now.
Well, actually, I live outside of Los Angeles in a suburban area just a little north of Los Angeles. The company I work for, TraitWare, we're based out of Reno, but we're some semi-remote. Some remote, some live in Reno.
Okay.
But I'm in the well, sunny but also cold Los Angeles area. Originally from Chicago, so I understand cold. This is not cold, but
Okay.
I'm a little bit wimpier now. Yeah.
All right. So most of your team is on the West Coast of the United States.
Yeah, most of us are on the West Coast right now.
All
Yep.
right.
Pretty much primarily on the West Coast at this point. We
And
still occasionally use some people out east, but yeah, depends.
you said it was cold today in Los Angeles?
Well, look, that's my assessment. It's not really that cold. Well, let's see. No, look, 44 degrees. That's actually pretty cold for Los Angeles. Yeah, 44. I live a little north. It's a like low deserty area, but yeah,
Okay.
it's chilly.
Well,
But
that's
we'll work with
odd
it.
because I'm in South Carolina and it's warmer in South Carolina. We're
A
at
few
50
times a
though.
year that happens. Yeah,
I
it
know.
happens. It happens. It
So,
happens.
all right, all right. Well, Chris, I
Great.
appreciate you taking the time to join us. Um, I am excited to learn more about TraitWare. Can you kind of explain to our viewers what TraitWare is?
Sure. Well, we are we tout ourselves as a passwordless MFA company,
Okay.
right? So what we do is, yeah, passwordless MFA. And what that really means is we try to get rid of passwords or replace your passwords with something that doesn't use passwords everywhere
Okay.
we possibly can, right?
Okay.
And we're a security company. And fundamentally, well, that's what we are. We're a security company. We're trying to make people's lives easier by just eliminating one of the biggest risks to businesses these days, which is security vulnerabilities, right? And namely the password. That's the biggest area of breach. And so we provide a solution. What we do, and what I work for as the director of technology, help guiding that technology with a solution that makes their lives much easier and much more secure.
Okay. Excellent.
We'll
Excellent.
get into how that all works, of course, but that's the really big picture of what we're doing.
Okay. That sounds wonderful because I was wondering what exactly is TraitWare. And I know that, it all hinges around the login and
Yeah,
like you
yeah,
said, passwordless. So I think that is
yeah,
key and MFA.
yeah. And MFA, that's right. Yeah, and there's
Okay.
different kinds of MFA. That's true. That's true. There's not all are created equal.
Yeah,
That
that's
can get a little bit
true.
confusing.
So what is an example? Let's talk about MFA real quick before we get into the
Sure.
platform and let's kind of discuss
Yeah.
what you're talking about. So your solution basically utilizes no passwords at all.
Right. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as a solutions provider, passwords have always been there. We've always
Yeah.
dealt with
Yeah.
passwords for our customers, ourselves. How does that happen to where we can authenticate properly and securely without having the need
Right.
to keep up with passwords other than like a password manager like LastPass or something? Because you're
Exactly.
still
Yeah. Look. So that.
using a password.
Right. No. Exactly. Even those are still using passwords. So exactly what you said. Passwords have been around since almost the beginning of computers when they were invented at
Sure.
MIT and breached. They're broken almost immediately. There's a whole history behind that, but it's so ingrained in our culture, what we do, just the way we use things. It's just the way we do things. So how do we get past that, right? Well, what's happened is people realize that that's not working, right? They realized that many years ago that that's just not enough, right? Because they get stolen, people give them out. They're easy to compromise. They're easy to hack into. So people decided, oh well, we'll just add something else to make it more difficult, right? That's where the MFA thing was kind of birthed and where that came out of, right? It was just let's add
Okay.
something on top of this password thing because the password's not enough. We need to add more. Yeah. And then what MFA is, right? Stands for multi-factor authentication, right? That's when people say MFA, we just kind of throw that word around now. People just think that means, rightfully so. They just say that just means it's more secure. MFA means multi-factor authentication, meaning you're just using something, you're using a password plus something else. Now, a lot of us are familiar with, we'll get a text message, right? We get this text message code to sign into your PayPal or whatever it might be, just your standard stuff as a consumer, right? You'll get these things, or an email link or something like that. But usually it's like a code you'll get on your phone, you type your password in, and then it says, oh, well, we need something extra, and we'll send you this code. And that's where it evolved to like the middle ground, what I call like this, like the middle stage, right? First stage is just passwords, not super secure. Okay, let's add something on top of it. That's the middle ground where we kind of are, a lot of places, a lot of businesses are right now, this middle ground of like, okay, let's use a password plus something else we've got. And then we're saying, no, we can make that easier and more secure. We'll get into how we make it easier and how we make it more secure. But next step after that is, okay, let's just forget this system of like this password system and it's broken already, and then we'll put a Band-Aid on top of it. What if we can get rid of all that and just use passwordless to get into things instead? And how do they do that?
Sounds
Your question
good.
was how do people? No, it is good. It's a good thing. And how do people do that? The consumer world, there's two different worlds here. There's the consumer world, and then there's the enterprise world. We're going to focus on the enterprise world because that's what we can really help with. And most companies that are out there can use a technology like ours, a passwordless technology, to help them in the enterprise world. So a lot of enterprise applications use these things called identity standards, right? And we don't have to get into the technical stuff of how that all works. It's not really that isn't important. But if there are these modern like web applications, a lot of people will use like the Salesforce or the Bamboo for HR. A lot of people use that, or Gmail, or even Microsoft, your email, your Microsoft Office products. Those things, they may or may not know it, but those things can actually work with a product like ours. And if you're using, which is a product like ours, to actually provide this passwordless authentication.
Okay, excellent. So I'm assuming that requires a device like a cell phone.
Yeah. So how we work, and I'll give you guys a demo in a little bit.
Okay.
We use a mobile app it's installed on a mobile phone, right?
Okay.
And then you use that, and you kind of like sign into your mobile app. It just uses your biometric. I should just show you because it's easier. But you use that to sign in. So you sign into your app, and then you use the app to get into like a website. And it's much faster. It's much more secure. Again, there's no passwords to share or be compromised. Like no one's gonna be able to send you an email. Your bank account has been compromised, or hey, your PayPal has been, please contact, and people click the links. That's what's called phishing, right? Where people send you an email and they ask you to click this fake and type your password, and that's how they get it. That's one way they get the passwords. And they do that for businesses too. I mentioned a couple of consumer examples, but they'll do that for your business. They'll do that for anything they can get into to get whatever they need. They don't really care.
Okay.
So yeah. So go ahead.
No, I was just listening to you. So that sounds exactly right with how we're evolving now into this, because now we're talking about, you bring up the MFA, and it's a very good point, because a little MFA is better than no MFA, definitely. But just like they're saying now, text messages are not really that secure for MFA anymore. They're saying, because I guess if an attacker, it really wants to get you as a bad guy, to bad actors and threat actors, they'll just compromise your phone number and intercept that text. So
that's right.
So at that point, it leaves that it's not that good. So
it's not as secure. Yeah, it's not as secure as people might think it is. That's true.
Because the bad guy's not going to be able to get access to the TraitWare app on their phone, because it hasn't been converted to a secure token. Is that right?
Yeah, well, the TraitWare app is, maybe I should just show you.
Yeah, go ahead and show us.
People are confused. Like, what are they talking about? What is this app? What is this magical future we're hearing about here? Let me just show. I'll show everyone so we can we can all be on the same page with this. Makes sense. Okay. So this is an example. You can look on the left. This is live. This is real. I'm going to do this for you guys all right now in the moment. And you probably mentioned that if people have questions while I'm doing this, feel free to ping them in the chats, on I think we're on Facebook Live, right? We're streaming on Facebook. So if you have any questions about what I'm doing, feel free to stop us, and happy to answer any questions that you guys have. But you see my screen, right? And I've got the TraitWare app, my phone on the left, and I've got a TraitWare app on there. And then just you know, a lot of people are using for their work, they're using either Microsoft or Google, right? Probably 99% of people are using Microsoft or Google. So if I want to sign into Microsoft today, or my email today on the or any web application, right? I'm gonna traditionally click the sign in button. It's gonna give me a username and a password, right? So if I click in here, it's gonna say, hey, what user are you, right? It's going to type in my name. If I type in my email address for my work, now usually it would ask you for a password, because we're using TraitWare, it's not going to do that. You're going to see something completely different. And a lot of us are used to what we're about to see. In fact, over the last couple of years, we've become very accustomed to what we're about to see here, which is a QR scan. That's one option of how we allow people to scan to get in, to log in. So you're not going to get a password anymore. Instead, you're going to get this screen like this with a QR code that you have to scan. Well, what do you scan it with? Well, we've all been really familiar over the last couple of years using our mobile phones, maybe at restaurants or something, to scan menus and pay. I pay for a lot of things in restaurants. It's super easy to pay for things with QR codes, and we've been using this for before that all happened. We started this technology like 4 or 5 years ago. So we've been using this, and now it's so wonderful to see the world actually catching up and being comfortable using this technology. Let me do this.
Awesome.
So great, we're on this screen. This is great, but how do we get in, right? And there's a lot of talking here, but when people get used to it and they do it, it's just really fast. So on the left, you'll see I'm gonna open the TraitWare app, and I'm gonna have a bunch of accounts in here because I do a lot of stuff for our company as the director of tech. You know, I manage a lot of different projects. But if I click that very first one, I click that very first account where it says TraitWare internal, and I click that, it's gonna scan my face. It's gonna use the biometric. That's the multi-factor, where it's built into multi-factor. Something I have. Multi-factor authentication is something you have, like a phone, something you are, like a biometric, which is going to scan my face in a second, or something you know, which is a password. We're not going to use a password. We're not going to use something we know. We're going to use two of those things, which is something I have, this, and my face. So I'll hit the button. It's going to scan my face. Okay. Now you can see I've got this camera going here, right? And if I go and scan the QR code, right, it's just going to log me in just like that.
Boom. So that is
Boom.
the no password.
That's the no password. Yeah. And that you'll see that same example is replayed over, you know, whatever application you're trying to sign into. We can even do it to your Windows desktop. You can open your Windows machine and scan a QR code just to sign into your Windows.
All right. So I've got a technical question that I'm loving what I just saw. That looks great. But is there ultimately a password associated with that account you just signed in that this bypasses?
Sure. Right. A lot of people think that, right? They wonder, oh, okay, they're just like hiding the password behind the scenes. It's not really a password. It's just sometimes people will say, they'll use this phrase, it's a passwordless experience. I think that's actually come to mean two different things. I think in some circles that actually means truly passwordless. In other situations, that actually means it feels like passwordless. It feels like there's not really a password because I didn't have to type anything. I didn't have to know a password.
Sure.
But in this case, what you just saw is actually truly completely passwordless. So remember I mentioned earlier that we use these identity standards, right? There are these, what's going on behind the scenes there is, you know, when you scan that QR code, it's going out and talking to our server is talking to Microsoft and saying, hey, let this person in. And it's using some security, but it's actually not a password. It's using this behind the scenes, this standard. It's like an identity payload. It's very secure. And there's a direct link between our server and the Microsoft or whatever web application you're using that you have to go through in the setup process that makes it a really secure encrypted thing that gets sent over. And that's what logs the person in. It's not a password. It's not considered a password. In other words, here's how you can think about a password. Is there anywhere a person can go to type a password to try to get in, right? And what I just showed you was there's not. It redirects to TraitWare. It's going to use TraitWare to get back and log into Microsoft. In other words, no bad actor out there can go and say, well, you know, there really is a field that's left exposed somewhere. I can actually go in and try to type it. They're not going to go find it. Like I always tell people, like when I talk to friends, right? Friends are like, what do you do for a living? I try to explain it and they're like, oh, so there really is no password. I'm like, no. And I tell them, like, look, like you could literally, like, by force, you could ask me to divulge my Gmail password, like, or for my Google Workspace password. I don't have one. Like I never had one. It doesn't exist. Like there isn't one. Like I'm not pretending to not know it. My IT doesn't have it. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing.
So I got a quick question, and let's stick to the office and not Gmail.
Yeah.
But the office, like if if you're the global admin and a new employee comes on board, one of the first things that asks you to do is, okay, let's generate a password for this employee. So when you're creating the account, it doesn't like, how do you bypass that field where it prompts
No,
you
no, yeah,
for a password?
that's funny. No, I just actually was onboarding somebody for our company this morning, and we do this a lot. So it will say, and I did, yeah, it will say it's creating a password, but
Okay.
I'll never see it. They won't ever see it, and it's not actually used in the process. Now, if you turn off TraitWare, if you turn it, you'd never want to do that, because why would you? Once you see how
Right,
easy it is, you
right.
never would want to do that. But once you turn off a passwordless system, you can get your password back and you can reset them and start using them again. So remember, so you got to understand, all these companies were built based around a password as the way to get
Right.
in, right? TraitWare was built from the ground up to be passwordless. So they're all having to build onto these legacy technologies, including Microsoft. So just as part of their general account creation, I expect they will eventually switch over to where they don't do that, but it's so ingrained in what they do at the deepest levels. They're going to say, "Oh yeah, we're creating a password," but to log in, they're not actually using Microsoft anymore. And you
It's
can't.
just to
When I say you
pacify their
can't,
own internal systems.
it's just to like click. Yeah, they have to do it, right? They have to go through those motions of doing it, but it's not actually using the process. And when you're sort of, what you're hinging on a little bit now is that whole chicken and the egg problem is like, okay, well, if you are passwordless, how do they get into their email to begin with, to get like, how do they get into the system to begin with, right?
Sure,
And
sure.
what we usually do is we'll get on like a video call like this, and to get to like, to get somebody onto the TraitWare app, it's really easy. We just, like you saw me scanning a QR code to get in. They can go to the app store, download it, and scan a different QR code to get on board, to get onboarded. There's no password in our onboarding process either, right? When we set up that email in Microsoft, we don't have to send them a password. We just actually send them either a registration. We will what's called identity proofing, right? That's where we prove that we are who we say we are. We
Sure,
want to make
sure.
sure that the person we're getting onboarded to TraitWare is actually that person we want to be onboarded. HR usually takes care of that, or the IT department. And that they'll either scan a QR. Usually those just scan a QR code or type a code in their phone. And once that, and then you'll get an account, much like you see on the screen now. I can stop sharing
Okay.
for a second, but yeah, you'll get one of those. You'll get a code, and you'll be on board, and you'll have one of those accounts you can tap, and then you'll be able to use that to scan into everything without ever having a password to begin with.
Awesome.
Which makes it
So
really easy for IT. Yeah,
so it's kind of like single sign-on, because once you authenticate as the end user
yeah,
with TraitWare, TraitWare says, okay,
mhm.
they're validated now. If they want to access this account, this account, doesn't matter what account. We'll just go ahead and just touch what account you want and scan the QR code you're in.
That's exactly right. And we do
Okay.
offer, because we do function as an identity provider as well. So we do have a single sign-on portal where you can scan it, like where I showed you going right to Microsoft and like logging in to Office that way.
Sure.
We do have a single sign-on portal where you can, which we love to use as well. So you go to a website and you have all your apps that you're available, or just listed there in tiles. Click on the little tile and you're there. So it's passwordless access to your single sign-on portals too.
Okay. Excellent. I'm liking what I see. Very high tech.
Good.
So
We've worked hard on this. We've worked really hard to make it seem really, really simple. It's like a lot of words again, but when people do it, it's like 3 touches and you're in just a couple seconds.
got you. Probably faster than typing a password once you get
It
used to it.
can be, yeah. And then, yeah, we've done like studies on that. Timing it versus a password. Remember, but it's not only a password. People should be using. A lot of people are using that bolt-on MFA on top of the password. You got to wait for the text message to get there. You got to do the copy and pasting on the text message and the thing, and then it just blows it out of the water. It's not even close, honestly.
Well, if they use a secure, long, strong password and it's not in a password manager, it would probably take them a while to type that out. So,
It
and
would.
that would not even be as secure as your system.
Or they're doing something, or they're not typing it out. They're keeping it on their desktop in a little file, and they're copying and
Right.
pasting it, which means it can be all the tricks people do, right? Like, we're
Yep.
all going to do the easiest, laziest way to do it. We take that into account when we're creating our technology. We assume people are going to do that. So how do you make it really secure and allow people to be like, not have to think about anything, and not getting lazy to the point where something bad can happen, but to the point where it doesn't really make a difference? They're going to be fine.
No, that's true. Because as a solutions provider myself, I can't tell you over the years how many times I've logged on to an end user's desktop and there is a Word document right there staring me in the face
Yeah,
that says
yeah,
passwords
that's right. Oh
with
yeah,
the
no,
keys
no,
to
yeah,
everything.
with the keys, exactly right there. And like, and people have moved on and to password managers, right? So that was the next step
Mhm.
in that process, right? Okay, great. The admins, they came around, they realized, people using sticky notes. They're just creating Excel spreadsheets of all this stuff. We can't have that. So we're going to get password managers now. Now we're going to take all these passwords. We're not going to get rid of them. We're going to keep them, but now we're going to put them behind. We're going to put them somewhere else, right? Somewhere else that's secure, right? So what ends up happening, you probably know, is all those get stuck into a vault, and now you've got like one password to get into everything, right? So now there's one master password to get into everything. And where does that master password end up? That ends up on the desktop in the Excel spreadsheet or wherever it is. Hopefully it doesn't, but maybe it ends up. So we actually, like, we understand, we understand that this is a transitionary process. This is not going from 0 to 100 instantly overnight, going from what we've been doing for the last, what has it been, like 70, 60 years overnight. We're not going to go from that to completely passwordless. So we get it. We understand that. So passwordless providers, that's going to be a thing in this, because not all websites support what we're doing right now. They're all moving there, and the numbers are growing exponentially every year. People realize, well, we can't do this anymore. So so many things. So in the meantime, we do, if people need to use password managers, we suggest they do, but be able to pick one that can be passwordless. So we use a password manager, but we are passwordless into our password manager. Again, the same conversation I had with you about, like, my Gmail, or not my Gmail, but my Microsoft email. I don't know the password to it. I don't know the password to my password vault, because there isn't one. There's no master password. I have to scan the QR code.
Your face
on my phone, right? I use my phone, and then to get into my password thing. Or it's the same thing. There's some back there, but you got to use passwordless to get into it, to get to them. And we're trying to eliminate as many as we can, And again, that's not up to us as much as it is up to the industry and just people just moving over. It takes, like I said, it takes time. It's understandable, but we're ahead of the curve, and we're just waiting for people to catch up.
So, one of the things prior to learning about TraitWare that we do in our MSP is we use LastPass, but we also use it and turn on 2FA for it, and we utilize YubiKeys, the hardware-based authentication. So you physically got to touch the key. So I think doing things like that is important. In addition,
it's a good practice.
Yeah, it is. So you've got to have you wouldn't want your password manager sending you a text message.
No, you would not. That would be bad. And there's pluses and minuses of YubiKeys too, right? Like, I know those people that work in that company. They're great. They have satisfied a really important use case, which is, hey, how do we get past this curve to this? But of course, that I'm not going to talk bad about any vendors. We're all friends. We're all in this industry together. Our goal is really the same, which is to make things more secure and more simple. Some of us had different approaches. So I'll just refer to them as hard tokens, because there are several vendors out there that do it. Hard tokens are great for certain use cases where phones aren't allowed. There are certain high secure environments in the government where they will not allow phones, right? And you want to be able to support different methods of getting into that, right? The downside of security tokens is there's a few of them. Again, I hate to talk bad about things, but I just want to be realistic about what's out there, right? Be honest. So hard tokens, they are usually they can be lost easier than your phone. You're going to notice your phone is missing instantly. People leave their tokens stuck into the side of a laptop. Not exactly a great practice either. If the NFC thing, sometimes you can tap them. That's a good thing. But sometimes people leave them stuck in. That's not so great. But the other thing is they actually usually you need more than one. If you lose them, you're in trouble, right? With software-based tokens, you lose your phone. Yeah, you lose your phone. It's easy in our console, in our admin area. You just click a button and it's turned off if someone were to find it. And to get them back up again, you don't have to go through this crazy pairing process and sending them like a bunch of tokens. And sometimes you have to pair a token to every single website, to every service. You have to pair it to your password thing. You have to pair it to this website, this site. That with ours, it's just like a one-time pair. Your mobile phone gets you into everything. So to get people back online, back on board, they just got to get a new phone. And then just like they at the beginning, you scan a QR code or whatever it is to get back on the TraitWare app, and you're good to go. You're off running again. So it's a lot easier. But we understand that there are use cases where hard tokens are good. But like I said, anything is better than nothing. But we're excited about the future where it's not band-aids, it's not layers. It's really making it easier for the admins and easier for the users. You just tap the scan, and you're in. And it's all the security is happening behind the scenes. The users don't have to see it. It's low friction. That's really the goal, and I'm sure it's the goal of all of us.
Well, Hey, Chris, I know you and I have been engaged in
Yeah.
conversation. I want to get to some of these
We have.
comments in the Facebook
Oh, great. Oh,
thing.
wonderful. People are watching. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, they are.
Of
So,
course they are. This is
um,
a great channel. Yeah.
so Elizabeth wanted to know, why is it better than using a key? And I think you
The
just
key.
probably explained that in the
Oh,
last 2 minutes
well, there,
about,
yeah, I can, no, I did, but there was one thing I probably didn't add, which I just realized, like with the
okay,
keys, a lot of times those are bolt on, like they are still password plus a key. So it's MFA, but you're using something else. The other thing is those keys, um, if you're using the key, you can't use the key by itself because a lot of them are not multi-factor. They're just keys. In other words, there's no fingerprint on those keys. Now you can get them;
sure.
they're quite expensive. They're not necessarily cost efficient, but usually they're just keys. And like I said, you can lose them. And if you lose them, somebody can plug that in and try to then steal your password. They've got this key out there in the wild, and they can use that. So it's not quite as secure in certain situations. That might be what they're referring to, or asking about. They're wondering if like why, what was the question? It was why are they not as secure?
Well, why is it better than using a key? No, I think
Why,
they
yeah,
mean
why it's
TraitWare.
better, yeah,
Why is TraitWare
because
better
it's all
than you?
built, you're right, yeah, because the MFA is all built into it, right? It's people have a
Okay,
mobile device, right? It's not something they have to go, the IT team doesn't have to go and go buy a bunch of new keys and that kind of thing. And it's just people are already carrying them around. They're familiar with apps, they're familiar with that. It reduces the friction. That'd be the easiest way to explain it.
okay. And Heath jumped in and said, average time to log in using a password plus Duo, etc. Average is 40 seconds. With TraitWare, it's 15 seconds or less. So a
Yeah,
lot faster.
not surprising. Oh, it's, yeah, it cuts it down by, like, that was a factor of like a third of the time, right? Not surprising at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have another one. Is there a plan to integrate with Touch ID on Apple laptops and desktops with Touch ID on the keyboard?
That's a good one. Yeah. Yes. So in our future roadmap is that what you're really asking about, probably are more like desktop log. Well, there's two different things. There's desktop logins. That's
Okay.
where you open your PC or your Mac and you just want to log in. Normally you use a password, right? Right now we have
Okay.
passwordless access to Windows machines, and we're working right now to do that for the Apple machines as well. That's the first layer. The second is, okay, now you're in your machine. Can I use the hardware and the biometrics that are already on the machine, like a Touch ID? I use a Mac all the time, so like a Touch ID on my Mac. That requires that is on our future roadmap, absolutely, to be able to. I can't give too much away, but yes, it's on our future
Okay.
roadmap to be able to leverage the Touch ID that's already there.
Okay.
Part of, well, let me speak to a little bit about that. So why is it important to have an external out of band authenticator? So when I say out of band authenticator, that means an authenticator that's not on the device you're trying to sign into. It can
Okay.
be important for a couple of reasons, right? Well, someone could obviously take your laptop, but it's good to have an outside authenticator because you can add different authentication factors to that. So for example, with our product, you can layer on location awareness. In other words, you have to be in proximity to your laptop or in a certain, it could be a country, it could be a state, it could your house. We can add geofencing locations to actually lock down the areas where you are allowed to sign into your different applications. With a laptop, or they can go anywhere, maybe you don't necessarily want that. We could probably build that technology into that as well. Like I said, we're
Okay.
looking at on our future roadmap, but we still see the value, and customers are still asking for having a separate outside authenticator. You can also log in. I didn't show you that on the phone when I was showing the video example, but you can actually do single sign on your mobile device itself too. You can hit the apps in your mobile
Oh,
and use it that
nice.
way.
Nice.
Yeah,
So Elizabeth had another question too. She said, is the
sure.
QR code really secure? I mean, can't hackers get that?
Right. Right. No, that's a good question. So those are one-time use codes. It's not like we're displaying a code that can just be used and shown somewhere else, right? This is a one-time use code. When somebody uses it, it's pretty much gone forever. It never
Okay.
exists again. And yeah, it's not something that can be, and that maybe that's another reason. You have the phone and you're in front of it. You have to scan that code in front of it with the location awareness, like it's going to know where you are. It's not something that can be easily like transferred to somebody else necessarily, right? You have to use it. You have to use the phone. You have to use your face to scan it. I mean, you have to scan into your account. Your phone, your account has to have the rights to do all the stuff. All the security stuff happens behind the scenes, right? That, again, the The users don't know. We don't want them to know any of this stuff. They don't need to. There's no reason. But it's all happening behind the scenes. Yeah, the security of it. But yeah, I think the question was, is it really that secure? And it is. It really is that secure.
Okay, excellent.
As opposed to some other things that are not as secure.
All right. Well, Phil Goodman, he said to tell Chris, Phil Goodman says hi.
Oh, Phil. Oh, hey, Phil. Thanks for watching. Phil's a friend of mine. We're both magicians, actually. He's a really fine magician as well. And he's worked in the IT world for years. So hey, good to see you on here, Phil.
Awesome. Well, everybody keeps saying in the comments, magic. What is the deal with magic?
What is the deal with magic?
I think there's a special meaning behind the word magic.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that's kind of funny that Phil just popped in right then, and when you brought that up. Yeah, no, I'm also I have a few hobbies, but one of my hobbies I'm really passionate about is magic. I've been pursuing magic pretty heavily for the last few years now, and been pretty successful with it. And I think I've talked about this before. It relates to TraitWare in many ways because people say TraitWare is magical, right? And when you see it and it happens, it just works. It seems like it's some other world, like it's magical. And I can talk about my magic in a second, but yeah, the TraitWare magic is really just, how do you solve these problems? How do you make things seem effortless and seem magical? But no, I've been doing magic for a few years now, and really my whole life, but I really got back into it in the last few years. And
okay,
I perform professionally, which has been really fun. I was recently on this TV show called Penn and Teller Fool Us. I don't know, some people have probably heard of that TV show.
Yeah, I have.
It's on the CW network. So I got to perform on the season premiere this year of that. It was a really great experience and had a lot of success doing that this year. Yeah, it's just been a fun passion of mine, and bringing that into probably both, bringing my work into that and that into my work it's a fun combination of things. But I love it. I love the art of magic. I love the wonder of it. It's not, for me, it's not about fooling people. It's more about just bringing people into the wonder and the mystery of everything and of life. So it's been
all
wonderful.
right. Well, look, if I want to go back and watch that Penn and Teller show after the show,
Sure.
What episode is it?
Season 9, episode 1. Yeah, no, yeah, season 9, episode 1. But if you Google my name, it's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. You can see it.
All right.
Yeah,
I made a note.
You'll find it.
I'm gonna look it up and watch your magic after this. So awesome.
Sure.
Well, Heath, he came in and said the QR is simply the QR code. I think it's kind of going back to that QR code.
Oh yeah.
The QR code is simply replicating a one-time password. It is not a redirect to another page, nor does it have any identity payload in it. It can also only be scanned by the TraitWare app versus just a camera scan. So yeah. I guess
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a string. There's nothing fancy in that code. There's no password in there. There's no information. It's like a one-time string code. You can call it a one-time password or a one-time code, but it's not to be confused with the OTPs that get texted to you. It's different but it's like a one-time use. Yeah.
Okay. Thing. So why is moving to phishing resistant MFA such a hot topic for CISA now, along with why is MFA now the primary technology required by cyber insurance providers and regulatory bodies like the FTC, et cetera?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. So CISA, you mentioned the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. That's the government organization that has they try to provide they provide guidance and stuff for businesses. They can't necessarily, they can eventually write things into laws, but their job is to provide the best guidance to give people the opportunities to be as secure as possible. Why phishing resistance? Well, because in the government, they obviously want to have really high security standards in the government, and they know and have known for a while that there are many things lacking in the current MFA world, that not only are passwords broken, MFA is broken too. And there's a couple ways. One is like a few, the text messages we still get today. Years ago, the government said that's no longer secure. Don't do that. That can be compromised. That's not a good way to do business. And companies are still doing it because the government has not, required you to not do it. It's not like there's no law against it. It's just not good practice anymore. And it's easy. It's much like the password. It's just ubiquitous everywhere now. But people should not be doing it. But most of the time, there's no other options, right? That it's just the options are out there, and they recognize that's not working anymore. Even the push notifications, right? We do offer that as a service. as an option to log in, where you get, you use your username, you get a push notification. Now we've got some extra security around that to make it more secure, but that can still be an issue for people. Like, people will band-aid that on top of a password, and they'll get, I'm leading all up to the phishing thing. There's a reason that I'm going around this in a circle here, around the back way. So people will use these push notifications, right? They'll type their password and then they'll get a message on their phone. Now, this is where this is where complacency sets in. People, and that's MFA, right? There's a password. I mean, there's a username, then there's a password, and then there's a push notification, and then they have to type, tap yes, log me in. Some vendors still use that, or that's their primary method of logging in.
Sure.
So people get complacent. They think, oh, I've got MFA. I don't have to think about it anymore. I can relax. Everything's good. I just type my username in. I type my password. I tap my phone. Everything's good. I don't have to worry about getting phished. Well, here's the thing. If people do get that password, right? They get that password. What happens is people will start hammering their phones with those push notifications, right? Or they'll do it right at the time where they're going to log in the morning. People get lazy, right? They get complacent. They just like think, oh, whenever I see this message on my phone, I just tap it. I just tap it. I just tap it. And what happens is they'll get one of those messages. They won't be thinking. Their brains are turned off, like mine is in the morning. They'll click the button, and they didn't know it, but somebody else was trying to log in, and that person got logged in. Right? That's the downside. That's why.
Sure.
So that's what's going on for real. That's what's prompting CISA to say, we can't do this anymore. They've done that too many times. There's been too many compromises. There was the Colonial Pipeline infrastructure hack that happened. That was shared credentials. There's we can talk about different use cases or different compromises. It's like every week I turn on the TV or read the news. I don't know what TV is anymore. I turn on this streaming device and I see it, or I read the latest security headlines, and like, somebody's been hacked again. And what is it? You always go, oh, look, it's a password. They shared a password. Somebody got the password and they sent them a push notification and they click the button. So here's the deal. Phishing, back to your original question, phishing resistant, right? Phishing resistant gets rid of all that. Phishing resistant is like a passwordless solution where you're not going to get phished. There's no phishing resistant means you can't send me an email. Like I said, you can't send me an email and I click on a link and give you my Microsoft password because I don't have it. It's not going to autofill from my password manager because there isn't one in my password manager.
It's not available
it's not
for you to give.
My brain. It's not in my brain to autofill it. It's not a sticky note or an Excel spreadsheet to autofill. It just doesn't exist. It's not out. It's not there for me to give. So that's what phishing resistant is. It's resistant to that type of an attack. A phishing attack, again, is when you get sent an email, they're trying to get you to type in something that you're not supposed to in a place you're not supposed to. But if that doesn't exist, then it's phishing resistant, right? And that's what that's what ours does. It provides a phishing resistant solution. And the government is realizing, like I said, MFA is broken. What's next? They're not calling it passwordless. They're calling it phishing resistant. Eventually, they will probably just be combined. But this really is a passwordless solution.
So Heath just brought up about the recent Uber and Twilio breaches. They were both from MFA fatigue via brute force push acceptance.
That's exactly, that's what I was just explaining, right? People get late. They hear MFA and they think, they can just relax. I'm done, right? I got MFA.
I'm done.
It's not going to happen to me. It's not. And then look what happens when. And what happens here? Here's what happens. They get breached, and then they go and blame. They might blame the IT department. They might say, hey, look, they told me I had MFA. I did all the things I was supposed to do. Don't blame me, right? Blame somebody else, right? And we want to make it. We want to take that away. We want to take that risk. It's really risk, right? We want to take that risk away from the IT department, who's ultimately going to get blamed, right? Maybe the users will get blamed too, because we make this all the time. But ultimately, it's the IT's decision that they have. The IT's job and the CISO's job, and the security professionals, whether using an MSP or an MSSP, whoever's managing your security, their job is really to manage your risk, and they are the ones that should be advocating for tighter security. Now they're going to do the best practices they can and what they're aware of, and we're here to try to raise awareness of phishing resistant, of passwordless, so that those CISOs, those folks have an option and never have to face that situation where some user is coming to them and saying, "Oh man, I wasn't thinking. I was sipping my coffee. The thing came up on my phone. I hit the button, and I had no idea what was going on. I was just autopilot." And this takes away, phishing resistant can take away that autopilot thing. So Uber, Twilio, we hear these all the time. They're sharing their credentials in Slack channels. They're sharing them in whatever channels. They're leaving them in their GitHub repositories on accident, and then the push notifications are coming in with the fatigue stuff, and they're.
So I've got another.
We just want to get rid of all that stuff. We don't need to do that anymore.
I've got another technical question. So
Sure.
what happens when a new user to TraitWare signs on and they've got 20 accounts that all have passwords that are going to
Hmm.
be converted to passwordless? Does the password just simply disappear? Does the password always stay there in the background, even if it's a
Good
secure
question.
password? Or, you
Yeah.
know, how what are the logistics of that password
Yeah. No,
after
that's a
TraitWare?
great question. Let me get a sip of water here. I
Sure.
understand the question. Yeah. No. Good question. There's no one simple answer because every service provider, right, a web application, every
Mhm.
service you sign into is going to treat that a little differently. Like I mentioned before, some of them, most of them were built from the ground up to have a password. So somewhere in their system, they probably are storing some sort of a pass. Well, first of all, they're not storing the password. They shouldn't be the password anymore. They're storing, to get a little technical, a hash of the password. So
Okay.
not the actual password itself, but some representation of that password, which may or may not have ever been sent out to a user, and converting it over. And so some of the more modern companies, they may not ever issue, if they see that you're using a passwordless system, they may never issue a password to begin with. So in a lot of those systems, there are hashes of the password sitting around in the background. Now, can they be used? Some service providers still allow you the option to have a backdoor. You may want to have, in certain circumstances, like a break glass scenario, you may want to have a backdoor with a password, but only the administrator, and that's locked down usually with a passwordless system or in a safe or something like that. Like that might be like a fail-safe requirement that's needed. But
Okay.
technically speaking, a lot of them may have a password that's hashed in the background, but it's not, you're not able to use it. Like I showed you with the Microsoft example, there's no actual field to go type it in. There is no backdoor. But those are really going to be different for service providers. Some may allow you to have a backdoor, some may turn it off by default, some may require you to go and turn off that backdoor.
Do
But
you
they're all moving
see
away from, and I see them maybe eventually, like I said earlier, maybe like eventually eliminating that step, but it's so ingrained in what they do.
do you ever see Microsoft actually doing this with Windows? So instead of a login that end users sign in with, they could scan a QR
Yeah.
code like you just showed us? Is that coming down the pipe for the workstations?
Well, we've got that already. So we actually have that. That's a service we offer now.
Okay.
That's deployed. Customers use that right now. We have a client that installs on the Windows boxes, on
Okay.
the yeah, on Windows, your Windows box, and you use that to sign in with our process right now. Instead, when you go to log in, you won't see a password screen. You'll click a button and you'll get a QR code. And then just like you saw me earlier, people are just jumping now. You can scan or scroll back and see that earlier in the video I gave a demo. You'll use your phone and you'll use that to scan into your desktop. Will Windows do that
Awesome.
eventually? I don't know. I don't know if they'll do it themselves, but we have it right now.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm thinking that'd be a great to integrate with like Azure Active Directory or something.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
and
No.
then
Oh yeah. 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 And ours does actually integrate. So when you saw me sign into the Microsoft stuff, it does integrate with Active Directory. So when you sign into a Windows laptop with TraitWare, you can also be signed into your Azure platform as well. So you
okay,
actually just can
awesome.
go to the browser. I know that it's with Edge. I don't know. I forget if they integrate with. I don't think they integrate with other browsers, but with Edge, you just go right to your Outlook and you're in. Like you sign
Okay.
in with TraitWare and you're actually into all your Azure stuff
Well, Chris, can
or your
you do me a
Outlook stuff.
favor? Can we wrap this up with one more demo? Can we go
Oh yeah,
through and do that again and kind of share your screen and show everybody the
sure.
phone and
Yeah, let's do that for people just jumping on. That's absolutely. Maybe I'll do a couple different demos this time just to show a
show
little
us
bit
the
more of what we
magic?
can do. I will show you the magic. You've all been waiting. Here we go. Next time I'll do something. I don't have anything I can do quickly. I should have brought something to do here. Yeah, let me share my screen again here.
Okay.
Here we go. Okay, so you're going to see my screen again.
Okay.
It's where we have before, but for people just jumping on, you'll see on the right hand side is just a browser, right? Browser, and on the
Okay.
left is my iPhone, and on there's a TraitWare app. And there's already a bunch of accounts in the TraitWare app, and when I go to a website like Microsoft or any web application out there, instead of using, when I go to sign in with my, you can see it already says sign back in. It knows I've already tried to sign in once. When I want to go sign in again, I click the sign in button, and it's going to redirect me to, ask me which account I'm going to use. Instead of a password field, it's going to redirect me to our TraitWare sign in page instead. And this is an integration that we set up ahead of time, right? This is something we have to go help out, or you can do yourselves. But so there's this integration between Microsoft and TraitWare that already exists. And when that happens, instead of a password screen, you're going to get this QR code to scan. So then on my mobile device, I pick that up, open the TraitWare app. There's a bunch of accounts I explained earlier because I work on a lot of different projects within TraitWare.
Sure.
But if I click that top one, it's going to scan my face. This is the part of the multi-factor, who I am. I have to look at it, and I get this ability to scan it. I scan the QR code, and then I'm in.
And let's talk about that process right there real quick.
Sure.
The biometric face scan into TraitWare, into the app, was the first MFA validation. And then,
well, there's two happen at once there. Okay. Because the mobile device is one, the face is the second one. That's the multi-factor with that.
Okay.
And we can layer on other things on top of it, but that's the initial multi-factor. I should mention, like, we use the biometrics of the device. So like on Android or on iOS, we're not capturing the biometric. We're not capturing your face data, your fingerprint data, or any of that. We're not sending it off to the cloud, our server, to analyze that or anything like that. That's just using the native stuff on the device. It never leaves the device. It's really secure. I think a lot of people are at the point now where we're trusting these companies with the biometric portion to not leave the device, to be really secure. They've put a lot. I know Apple's and Android and Google. They put a lot of work into making sure that those are really secure and locked down.
Okay, good deal. And it works like that with any other application too, right? I mean, they're all pretty much going to give you a QR code.
Yeah, so if I go to like sso.traitware.com, if I go to our single sign-on portal, that's another example, right? I can go to this and you'll see different applications that I have, right? So 365 different accounts here. So you can do it that way. You can do it through our single sign-on portal, or I can go to like AWS. I could just like launch into AWS. Did I click AWS? I think I did. Yeah. So it would just sign me into AWS without a password like that. Like, we're used to that with single sign-on portals, but there was a passwordless front door to that, so no one can get into the keys. No one can have the keys to the kingdom here. If I go to it works like that with any web application you go to. If you want to go directly to the web application to sign in, sometimes we recommend that people don't put things in here, really high secure things. Don't put them in your portal with everything else. Just an extra layer of friction, like some of your backend systems for your DevOps people, your developers, if you have that kind of a team, or trying to think. Just, it depends on the company you have, but some things, if they're really critical applications, your IT might not want to put stuff back here, just to add a little extra layer of security.
Makes total sense. Well, is there anything else you want to share about the TraitWare platform that users might find interesting? Or
sure, let me think about that. I'll stop sharing for a second. I don't know if we need to get into the technical deep dive of our console here, because it's a lot for people to take in. If they're not, maybe there are probably a lot of IT admins actually watch this, I'm sure. But we do have a really easy to use console, admin console.
Okay.
It's really simplified. You just see your users, you see what apps they have access to, just like toggle buttons for that kind of stuff. To onboard users, again, real easy, just an email and a name, and they have to scan a QR code usually to onboard. Again, the password list built from the ground up to be passwordless from enrollment all the way to login. So there's no password even during the onboarding process. We provide a really easy way to recovering devices. Again, same thing. If they lose their phone or if they misplace it for a little bit, it's easy to turn off and on real quick. The geofencing part's cool, where you can create boundaries around where the person might be working if you really want to add security layers to that. And real quick for admins, real good insight into activity. A lot of people want to, they get audited. They want to make sure that they can see the activity of the users. So we're, we show the activities, who's signing into what and when.
Okay. Well, I've got two more questions for you that come in. Actually, three more questions. Are APIs available to integrate with non-browser based apps that don't integrate with single sign-on?
Are APIs available for non-browser
based apps that don't integrate with single sign-on?
I got
to think about that. That's like a
I don't want
puzzle
to
in
answer that
itself.
incorrectly. We do have APIs for certain things. There may be an extra step in there where they need to have an identity standard. So if they
Okay.
if that applicant that they're designing supports identity standards, like I'll just mention them real quickly. I haven't yet. There's SAML, has been around for a while. The new, more modern one is OpenID Connect. If they support those, then yes, we can work with that. If not, but feel free to hit me up offline, and I'm happy to answer that question in a bit more technical way than probably is worth our time here.
And I think Heath is adding to the question I had asked earlier. He said Face ID, patented behavior biometrics of your device that is a rotating key.
Oh,
The QR
look,
is
yeah. So I
a
did.
one-time password, 3 factors.
Yeah, I should mention the most obvious thing that I always forget this because I've been around for a while. TraitWare. What is TraitWare? Why is it called TraitWare? Well, the idea was, what if we could look at the way you use your device and add an extra layer of security based on your personal, the way you use your device, your traits. Again,
Okay.
we're not trying to be, we're not sending this information to the point where we can reconstruct it and figure out who you are and your behaviors, and we're tracking you. It's nothing like that, right? It's much simpler.
It has an intended purpose.
It has an intended purpose, exactly. So we want to know that you are the person using your device. So when people like log in, we're recutting that. We say we're recutting the key to the door every time. I'm talking about just the login, just to authenticate to the mobile device, so you can use it as a key to get into everything. So we're recutting that every single time, which prevents people from even trying to hack into the app or trying to like clone it and do something somewhere else. So TraitWare is like really looking at the way you use your phone, the way you put your personality into your phone, and the way you do things, and using that, leveraging that, not against you to try to track you, but actually for you to prove that you are the one actually logging into your mobile device, and you are the one signing in, doing all the actions to log in. So yeah, thank you for asking about that one.
And then there is something else he added too. I don't think we talked about it yet. He said that TraitWare can actually add a GPS location as a 4th transparent factor.
Oh yeah.
And then a 5th photo pin based knowledge factor. So wow.
No, yeah, I mentioned the geolocation one, I think, a couple of times, where you can draw boundaries and make sure people are like within a certain state or house or whatever.
That's the geolocation. I got you. Yeah.
That's the geolocation. Geofencing. There's people call it geofencing, geolocation, geolo.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever it is. And then the other one he mentioned was some people want to add an extra layer of security where on top of biometrics, so that we have a knowledge factor. It's not a password, it's a photo pin. It uses a series of images, 5 images that they have to select in a certain order. And so people will have to do their biometric and then type in 5 photos to add an extra layer of security. So I think it's up to 5 layers of protection. And again, it's to the user, if they're doing everything and they're honest, they don't even notice. It's like was mentioned earlier, it's like 15 seconds or less, right? But it's actually.
So one of the last questions I think is perfect way to end this is the TraitWare solution built for MSPs and MSSPs with multi-tenancy, etc.
Yeah. So that's a good one. We designed this we built this fundamentally to work with, assuming that we may be working with MSPs or MSSPs, somebody who's working with a bunch of customers underneath them, and giving them the ability to kind of manage a whole customer set, right? So we have in our console, there's different layers, but there's like an account layer, and then under those accounts, you can have different customers, right? And you can manage them, and they're all siloed separately, so they're not like there's no cross-pollination going on there. And but the IT the administrator, the MSPs, the MSSPs can actually then go and go and manage those accounts separately, which is wonderful. And maybe one more thing about MSSPs. I know this is a big hot button topic in that world. Just security in general, it's a huge gap that's been identified. We've been attending a bunch of conferences and webinars and stuff, and there's been a huge gap identified in that whole world of security. Just not that it's a gap in a way that they can fill it, and there's a lot of business opportunity that's been missing, just because it hasn't been as prominent. We've been doing best practices, but the idea of actually adding this extra layer of security and MFA and IDPs to these SMBs, small to medium-sized businesses through these MSPs, it's a huge channel that's been untapped, and we're really excited about where that's going and the potential there.
Well, that's great. Well, Chris, we are wrapping up on the top of the hour here, so I wanted to ask my final question to you. You've
Sure.
done a great demonstration of the platform here. Thank you so much for your time. If we've
You
got some
bet.
members
Absolutely.
out there who are interested in learning more, they want to take the next step, what's the best way for them
Yeah.
to do that?
Well, yeah, a couple of ways. If they want to just reach out to us, they can go to our website, traitware.com, and reach out
Okay.
to us. They can also reach out, email contact, I believe, at traitware.com. It's all on our website. If they feel like they're a little bit more tech savvy, they can jump in and they can actually launch a free trial. They can go to our website, click a button, and get the console, the admin console I talked about. They'll get the email to onboard to TraitWare, the app, and they can start playing around and plug and play as they want. If they run into any stumbling blocks, feel free to reach out. We're always here to help onboard people, help people get familiar with the platform. And yeah, excited to talk to anybody who's interested.
Awesome. And for anybody who, if you do sign up, you do reach out to the folks at TraitWare, please let them know that you saw this demo. And that's where you heard about TraitWare, is from IT Business Owners Group. So awesome. Well, we will have to do this again soon, Chris. I hope you and your family
Thank
have
you.
a very Merry Christmas.
You too, Scott. Thanks so much. Take
All
care,
right.
everyone.
Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.
See you guys.